Hello and welcome to Watches Tonight at the 1916 Company. This evening, I talk about when to buy new watches and when to buy used watches. We chat live, I share your viewer wrist shots, and we solve the great drone scare of 2024. Some of the words I just spoke might be true. So, let's see which ones. All right. So, I'm a bad liar, guys, and I'm happy to see all of our live peeps joining in on the chat box. We got Garrett on the switcher tonight, and I want to just welcome everyone into the box, again, the live chat, and I will do my best Q&A as we roll through the reasons you might buy a new or pre-owned watch. While we're warming up, do me a favor, check out Instagram. I am Tim_Mosso, and you can see I have a huge roll of 60-second videos. They are all 60-second bite-sized reviews. You can see what I think, you can daisy chain them, you can even binge watch my Instagram, but you've got to follow to be with it, so Tim_Mosso on Instagram. All right, we got Edward, we got Rich, we got Arto Charles, Enrique Cassiano, Soma R from Budapest tonight, in Eastern Europe, staying up late, Rick on Watches, Miroslav also in Europe, we got Robert Dixon of Scotland, we got Aristocratic from Asheville, North Carolina, and Watch on the Side from Arizona in the great American Southwest. We got Whedon Watches from Mays Landing, New Jersey, where they know all about the drones. Actually, I don't know how much we know. I think most of them are airplanes. My guess is it's either going to be something spectacular or a total nothing burger. There's like no middle ground. All right, we got 1776 Atelier. Hi, Tim from Texas, and Pizza Man from Minnesota, where despite Midwestern location, they actually have incredible pizza. Okay. Instant gratification, part 1, viewer wrist shots. I asked, you answered. Anonymous hits the road with Nevada, wife, and his Bugatti. And this is frankly our first Bugatti sighting in the Watches and Wheels series. Please send more. Zachary V sings lead at the opera for real, no joke, with his Lange Zeitwerk striking. We have Tom B. thrills with his rare and exceptional Patek Philippe Calatrava 6006. That was a short production run. Tim M., the other Tim M., Tim Mancuso, he may be in the box tonight chatting, and if he is, he can see that we celebrate the holiday with chilled champagne and the Celebration dial Rolex. Jeff S. sports a piece unique gravity equal force by a combination of Armin Strom and Carrie Voudelainen, purchased at Oster Jewelers of Denver. Send your shouts to MondayMailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. All right, let's jump to the box and see what we have going on. Calvin D. from St. Louis, Missouri. We got Ian Sharp from the UK. We got the Timekeepers from London. Who else is in the box? Watches Gallery. And Jenks 72 Evening from Mid Wales in the UK. We got Jeb Brooks from Greensboro, North Carolina. All right, guys, so jumping straight into this, I think it's important to note that there are times to buy new watches and times to buy used watches. And in my time as a watch collector, which now spans several decades, in part, I wasn't always prolific, but I've learned a couple of lessons along the way. I've acquired watches in just about every way a person can. This includes buying new from authorized dealers, buying used, which includes buying from previous owners as well as pre-owned dealers. I inherited my grandfather's retirement gift Omega, so there's that as well. And I've also been given watches for free along the way. This is a friend from Brooklyn from my even better friend, Dan Reuter. So friends beget friends. And you could say that I've even traded for a watch, since in the end, I did get one watch back from my company when I sold them all of my JLCs, and that was the Zen EZM 1.1 that I wore for 4 years. So just about every different way you can acquire a watch short of buying one at auction. So, all of that said, most watch purchase decisions involve choosing between buying new from a dealer or buying used from various sources. What are the decision factors that influence this choice, and what would I recommend? That's the topic of tonight's show, and to be perfectly honest, it really does depend. So this is going to be by circumstance. You choose which of these fits you best. I'm going to lay it all out, and then we can talk about this along the way. We've got Neil B. from Naples, glad to be here. We got Mark S. from Brooklyn. Tim hasn't been a watch collector for a while. Oh, I disagree, and I've actually got a new watch that you'll see on my social media tomorrow. We've also got Renside joining in with Tim Mancuso. I knew he'd be there. He's one of my reliables. A local boy, too. We've got Dr. Ali joining in from SoCal, where I will actually be in January. More to follow. Abdul from Germany, thank you as ever. You are one of my most reliable supporters. So, when to buy a watch new? And this is a big one for me, guys, but is this a watch made of soft precious metals? And I cannot get over the consequences of buying a platinum or gold watch that has been dented, dinged, or excessively polished. If I'm buying a precious metal watch, my first choice would be to acquire it new. If I'm going to make a mistake, if I'm going to dent it or ding it or diminish it, it's going to be my fault, or at least it's going to be my choice. So wear, scratches, dents, they happen on the wrist. Refinishing happens at dealers. Is the watch defined by fine details, like this Patek Philippe 5236? Does it have fluting, delicate coining, sharp angles? If that's the case, you really want to get that thing unpolished. Now, every once in a while, someone brings something to market that's got scratches and marks on it, so you know it hasn't been polished, but at the same time, you also know it hasn't been babied. And I really like my precious metal watches to be completely fresh. Let me at least have the option to keep them safe. Let it at least be my fault if something happens. But I like to start with tabula rasa. I'd buy new, and remember, that also means no refinishing. New watches out of the case at a dealer have not been dulled or diminished by the refinisher's wheel, and you never have control over how good the refinishing is if that's happened. And I can see that more and more of you are reaching this conclusion because there is a movement now in the watch collector community, not just for vintage watches, not just for priceless artifacts, but for late model watches to not be refinished and polished. A few scratches, a few swirls, fine. Just don't put it up against a wheel and grind it down to a toothpick, because all too often that is what happens. I don't want it to look new or shiny. I want it to look factory, even if that means factory with a few scars. And here at the company, we're refinishing fewer and fewer watches these days as we see the trend in that direction. That was always our position with vintage pieces. Now, increasingly, with late model pre-owned, we're making the same decision. We've got Michael O'Neill from South Jersey. Michael, do you see any drones? What's your personal theory? Guys, let me know. Go crazy. This is the time and the place for the conspiracy theories. It could be a really, really, really elaborate promotion for Independence Day 3, if such a thing were to come. And then right here we've got Josh asking, Tim, how does a brand like Patek continue to sell watches to clients at these mega MSRPs when the market is so far down? I love the 5236, but the disparity is massive. It's really model dependent, to be perfectly honest. Patek as a brand is pretty solid. I would say if you want something that's a sports watch, whether it's precious metal or steel, if you want a high complication, if you want an application piece, the market is quite strong. Are there pieces that don't sell for MSRP used? Of course. But at the same time, there are also quite a lot of people who are looking to start a relationship with a dealer, create a purchase history, work their way up to something that requires a little bit more history with the brand. And that's perfectly reasonable on the brand's part to want to know that if you get something special, you're not going to flip it. So there are other incentives, despite, the fact that some watches aren't immediate aftermarket money makers, to buy a new Patek Philippe that isn't some kind of a complication, application piece, or Nautilus. What else is going on? Michael Everywhere. Hello from Manhattan. Good to see a local boy. We are in the Northeast of America here. So, second, another reason why I'd want to buy a watch new. Does this watch have a lot of complexity, proprietary parts, the need for proprietary service, and above all, a short warranty? Because if you've got one of these watches that's really bespoke, really unique to the brand that's making it, to the point that the brand may only have the tools, the parts, the means to service it, if it's a 2-year warranty and you buy that watch 1 or 2 years old, you're not getting a whole lot of protection. So if this watch is really idiosyncratic in some way that a well-trained and experienced watchmaker couldn't service locally, you may want to get it with the maximum warranty available. Many brands still offer only 2 years in this day and age. A lot of them are small independents. That Grunefeld, now it's no longer available, that's the Remontoir, but current Grunefeld watches, they carry a 2-year warranty. That's something to consider when you realize that very few people other than the folks in Holland are able to service this watch. So would I buy it new? I'd probably lean in that direction, and yes, I know, they've closed their order book. There are many other brands like it. I believe Grubel Forsey currently only offers 2 to 3 years of warranty, and frankly, De Bethune is in that 2-year boat as well. So there's a surprising number of 2-year elite brands out there that have watches that are very proprietary and non-standard, and I think going into that acquisition, I would want as many years of warranty as I could get, because that's frankly just dotting your I's and crossing your T's. As a customer, that would be my preference. Okay, now is the brand profoundly fun, accessible, and willing to engage with owners? Maximilian Busser of MB&F, super cool, super approachable. You buy an MB&F watch, you will absolutely be able to talk to him, consort with him, see him at events, chat, and buddy it up. He's a very cool dude, and what you see is what you get. It is seamless. The guy, after the camera stops rolling, is the same guy as when the camera is on. And the same is true for, say, Moser with Edouard and Bertram Meillan, or Chapek with Xavier. All of these are companies where buying the watch new will be the start of a relationship with brand chiefs and watchmakers who are eager to know you and appreciate that you showed confidence in their brand by buying new. And I find that experiences really do offer more fulfillment than a purchase, and I think buying into a relationship with your watchmaker or the person behind the brand is how you take that purchase and you elevate it to the level of an experience that's now going to offer you enduring satisfaction. So that's a big consideration for me. Jumping into the box, we've got Miguel joining in from San Diego. I love San Diego. Well, I know a lot of people in the military out there, but that's also where I went to buy my custom Bill Holland Exigrid bike. You should really go visit Bill and Cody if you want to buy a bike in 2025. We've got Doc Mick in Florida. We know where he is. We've got Ken joining in from San Diego. And Dr. Ali saying, JLC Reverso Tribute Duo Face, buy new or pre-loved. Well, we're going to get to that case, but I'm going to give you a quick preview. Any watch that can be bought new with an 8-year warranty is one you should feel very comfortable buying pre-owned for obvious reasons. Okay, back to reasons you might buy a new watch. This is a really big one, guys. The new car smell. You know how by the way, interior of a Bentley Brooklyn's probably one of my top 5 favorite cars of all time. I don't care that it is a icon of plutocratic excess. It's beautiful, handmade, special, and a forever car. That said, this is a real thing. There are people who only buy new cars, and there are people who only buy new watches, and it's for a lot of the same reasons. I know one gentleman who can and does buy whatever he wants. Price is not an object, both for cars and watches, and he has now hundreds of watches, all of them bought new. He only buys new and he never sells. And that's an unusual combo. Most people, even very wealthy people, have watches coming in and going out. But the only new watch buyer is a real phenomenon, and for a lot of the same reasons that people only consider new cars when shopping. You know, they want it to be fresh. They want to be the first one to take the plastics off the seat. They want to put all of the break-in miles on the engine to know that they did it right. They want to know that it's never been hit, never been painted. They want to know that it's been garaged every day. They don't want any wear, tear excuses or compromises. And I have to admit that I don't quite identify with this, since every car I've ever bought, except for my bizarre 3-year-old half-price Fisker Karma, was purchased used. And most of my watches were also purchased used. But I can see wanting to be the first wrist, to have the full warranty, to be assured of no refinishing, to have total faith that it's never been dropped or mistreated, that it's never been soaked and dried out, have absolute certainty that it's not a stolen watch, the full boxed set, and all of the original documents. This is completely relatable. And this type of preference really is personal, and it's a composite of countless small intolerances for the kind of compromises that affect every used watch in at least some small way. So the new car smell person who only takes new cars might also be that guy who only buys new watches. And while that's not me, I can understand it. Okay, jumping back into the box, we have Patek Philippe saying Ferdinand Berthoud. Heavy hitter. The FB RES might be the coolest new watch of this model year. Definitely look that up. Shoutout saying, so they don't collect vintage if they're only buying new. maybe the exception of NOS. That's absolutely true. No, they don't buy vintage either. And I know because I've tried to interest a lot of these people in vintage watches on the basis that, you know, if you're afraid of a used watch losing value, you can't do much better than something that's never going to lose. And they'll tell me, I don't want a used watch. And I'm like, it's a Rolex 6240, you know, Paul Newman dial. And they're like, I just don't care. I'm like, this is not some junk from the buy here, pay here car lot. And they'll be like, not my thing. And I have to say, okay, fine. I respect it. I don't understand it, but I respect it. And I will always be respectful to clients, no matter what you spend or what you buy. Viewers Shots number 2, Dr. Ben has his birthday Bulova set to his birthday, which is either 12/30 or 12/6. And we've got the Bentley Bentayga in the background. I love the watches and wheels, guys, especially when the watch is vintage. Jimmy Y and his Rolex GMT Master 2 Batman complete a final work trip pre-holidays. Enjoy that rest, my man. It is well deserved. Brian C pays tribute to the gods with the vintage re-edition Zenith Chronomaster Original in 1969 style. Marceau R and Benoit the dog mutually appreciate the Chopard Louis-Louis Chopard 1937. Mark H and 9-year-old son showcase a father-son Seiko Grand Seiko collection. And remember, it is not only Patek Philippe that you curate for the next generation. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com. See your wrist on my list. The great drone scare of 2024. Do we dare? I'm going to say it's either nothing, they're coming off a submarine off the Atlantic coast, or it's some combination of like copycat hobbyists with Costco level drones and then a bunch of false alarms from commercial aircraft. I don't know. I'm expecting to be surprised, but it sure is fun. It's like Dr. Manhattan saying, ooh, uncertainty. I haven't felt this in a long time. What else is going on here? We got Michael O'Neill saying, I wish I could afford a new luxury watch, but feel like getting new micro brands is almost as good. I want a Calatrava 96 so bad. That shouldn't be prohibitive. You're talking about a very small watch that's out of fashion, that was in production for 40 years. You should be able to find a 96 for the price of 4 or 5 micro brand watches. First of all the micro brands aren't cheap anymore. Second, you start adding up 4, 5, 6 micro brand purchases, and that's adding up to real money. Just something to think about. Sometimes you want to hold your fire and consolidate. So when to buy watches new and used? Let's keep going with this. Continuing our journey through the reasons a person would insist on buying new. So the entire idea of establishing a relationship with a dealer. Now, sometimes this is farcical. One of the world's largest Invicta dealers is at a rest stop in New Jersey. That's state again. It's like the nexus of the universe. But yeah, there is a stop on the Jersey Turnpike where you can get a hot dog, go to the bathroom, and start a relationship with your Invicta dealer. In all seriousness, it is worth building a relationship with the dealer if you can see down the road interest in something that might require a little bit more trust than a first purchase. And keep in mind, this is not the same thing as bundling or being forced to buy 4 or 5 watches so you can get the one hot model. This is more like showing a prior commitment to the brand and proving to the dealer that you're not just going to buy a watch and flip it. So the idea is that a person with sincere interest in, say, Vacheron would get purchase priority over someone who arrives asking for the hottest model as his first purchase. From the manufacturer's perspective, a dealer can vouch for the client's long-term interest. That gives more assurance that the watch won't be flipped that night on Chrono 24. Now, in the case of a watch available by application only, and this happens more and more often today, the dealer might help the manufacturer verify the customer's prior Vacheron purchases are still in his possession. And loyalty goes 2 ways. While every customer deserves equal respect at the point of purchase, I believe it is fair for a dealer to reward a dedicated customer with enhanced access to new watches. After all, once you've proved that you're A, interested, and B, trustworthy, that has to have some value. What's going on in the box? Rich Mitch saying, is it safe to put a dive watch in an ultrasonic bath to clean it? I would stay away from ultrasonics. The bracelet, fine. The watch itself, No. Especially if you've got something like an anodized bezel, an ultrasonic will strip that right off. And an ultrasonic might also undermine the seals. Remember, ultrasonics work by cavitation, and cavitation will take giant chunks out of the propeller of a submarine or a battleship. So don't underestimate the damage that sort of thing can do. I've seen people with ultrasonics strip the coating off fluorine-coated bike parts, and that basically shouldn't happen in thousands of miles of road use, and I've seen it happen in 30 minutes in an ultrasonic. So be very careful with an ultrasonic. I would never put a fully assembled watch in one of those. Okay, jumping back into the box, we have Patek Chris going off-brand, saying the 1921 Vacheron is my favorite Panerai Rodimer. See what you did there? Remember, Panerai, 1936, Vacheron. It's actually a composite of a watch made in 1919 and 1921, but the VC was first. That said, I agree. They do wear like smaller, like Rodimer 1940s. Okay, customization. Take a look at something like Sartori Biard. No two alike. So a huge proportion of Armand Biard's total production volume is either tailored or entirely piece unique. If you have something in mind that's possible by request but not in the catalog, then you have to buy new and specialize the details. So the watch you're looking at right there is one that I designed with Sartori Biard, and it included, by my request, a frosted center, a crosshair dial, Breguet Arabic numerals, skeletonized alpha hands, a purple titanium dial, a bubble sapphire, and a stainless steel case. And if you're going to get that particular, the only way it's going to happen is a bespoke order. And frankly, finding a match on the used market is close to impossible. That's a great argument for buying new. By the way, that watch model is still available from Sartori Biard. All the money goes to Armand. I don't take a cut. This is strictly my design and his benefit, because he's a man I believe in and he does good work. Plus, there's not a whole lot of French-made watches out there. Some haute de gamme brands like Depreciation also will do more involved customization with actual watchmaking and engineering options for those with budgets to match. This was a piece-unique DB17 from 2005, where Denis Flageolet took an Abauche that was basically the movement from the Christophe Claret Opus 4, and then he added Debutun's oscillator and a perpetual calendar to the minute-repeating tourbillon base. That's what's possible at Debutation with limitless money. And if you have something like that in mind, yeah, it's pretty much going to have to be a commission. Needless to say, there are no psychics in the watch industry, so if you have a request for something that doesn't exist, a pre-owned dealer isn't a viable source. And now other brands like Bece out of Hungary or Languntaina out of Germany will also do this kind of really bespoke work where even the watchmaking itself has been tailored to include features and functions not in the regular catalog. So again, that's a great argument for buying new. Also, taking a look in the box, we've got Noodle 1306. Hi, Tim and team. Greetings from the other side of the Atlantic Lake. And Abdul saying, Sartori Biard makes great watches. That is true, and they're getting more and more sophisticated these days. You want tantalum, you want a custom dial, you want a tourbillon movement, you want meteorite, Armand can do it all in one watch. What else is going on? Scott, Tim, Beauvais, new or pre-loved? I would say pre-loved. There's enough of them out there that selection is excellent. And right now, the pre-owned market does not appreciate them enough. I think every Beauvais should be in a vitrine as though it were in an art gallery when it's not on its owner's wrist. They're fully integrated down to the level of the craft arts, the enameling, the gem setting, the engraving. No one can do more in-house than Beauvais, and the density of features both on the watchmaking and art side is unlike anything anywhere else. That said, the market has not caught up with the brand's true value. They are definitely watches to buy used. Again, unless you want to go custom, and a lot of their watches are full custom, so definitely consider that. Okay, now there are times when a newly released watch is just too, well, new. It may not be available on the aftermarket. That's right, we're already seeing 2025 pieces right now. Sometimes a recent release is so recent that the pre-owned market has no inventory to offer. For people who are not patient, that might mean buying, well, I would just say out of the dealer, because put it this way, the first come are going to be the first served. Now, if you've fallen too far behind the curve and the wait list is years, again, reconsider. But if you see a watch you love on Watches and Wonders coverage, day one. Get on the phone to your dealer because that's probably going to be the best source. I would also say that consider something like the 2023 Daytona. I didn't see examples pre-owned for like a year. It was really slow to market, and that's because people were buying them and holding them initially. So unless you went to a dealer and you bought one of those new, you were out of luck. Also, a dealer for a brand like Rolex or Patek is likely to be disciplined and charge whatever the recommended retail price is rather than a markup. And that's really important because this is where buying new maybe isn't going to get you the watch first. You might be on a wait list, but when your number gets called, you're going to get it for whatever the advertised price of the watch is. This is not the car industry. You don't wind up getting charged 5 times retail at a Rolex dealer or a Patek dealer. If you wait and you're patient and you play by the rules, you're going to get it at retail price, and that's a reason to buy new. Now, here's the other thing. It doesn't mean you have to buy a watch that is, well, new. There are times to buy watches that are used. And by used, let me be clear. I mean both new, as in late model, pre-owned after, a few months. So the thing that might have been new last year is this year's used watch. It's this year's pre-owned. But then there are also things made decades ago. That's vintage. So both late model pre-owned and vintage, I'm going to call these both used interchangeably. So let's talk about a watch that was discontinued long ago and dealer inventory is exhausted. This doesn't mean you have to go out and buy some $400,000 discontinued Journe resonance, unless that's what you really want. I love the Ball Engineer 2 Magneto S. Now, I've reached out to the brand and asking them, can I get one that's still in box with warranty? And they said, sorry, we're sold out. And even when it was visible as a decorative graphic on their website, they were telling me that there were none available. So, hey, I was out of luck. Fortunately, there's still Chrono 24, and this is not an expensive watch. But if I insisted on being the first owner, it's just not going to happen, not at this point. Okay, let's revisit the Grunefeld brothers. The Grunefelds are, of course, based out of Holland, and they say that no new orders are being taken at their workshops in Oldenzaal. They're currently building out the orders they've already taken, including on the Delta Works, which is a hot and sure to be prolific sports watch that they recently launched. So, if that's the case, then the balance of reason shifts back towards the aftermarket and a lightly used example. Honestly, it seems like Grunefeld's order book has been closed for years now, so what other option do you have if you want to wear the watch in the near future? You pretty much have to go find something that's used and buy that. Also consider the undeniable logic that a sprawling wait list is no more appealing than a closed order book. So depending on who you ask, the waiting list for Charles Frodshem's double impulse chronometer is between 5 and 8 years, which is to say it might be the difference between your peak earning years and living on a fixed income, or you might be dead. I couldn't say, but this is definitely the Richard Sachs bike of the watch world. Go out, see if you can find one at auction, see if you can find one used, because that's the only way you're getting into this brand. It's an unimaginable wait for a watch, and it makes total sense to try to buy one now at some kind of aftermarket auction, pay the markup, buy it from the original owner, pay a little bit over retail, and justify the purchase by saving some money elsewhere in decisions you make over the subsequent decade, and you'll enjoy your watch all the while. Time is money, and frankly, the time we have in our lives is priceless. So why wait? That's a great example of a watch to buy used. Now, here's another question. Is the watch ceramic, or is it made some indelible material that's hard to scratch, dent, or scuff? So I hate having to guess whether a watch has been polished. Now, I'm pretty experienced, and I usually know. I can't really be fooled too easily. But a lot of folks want that extra layer of sure comfort and certainty that comes with something that doesn't need to be refinished and indeed cannot be refinished. So, even better than a watch that looks like it's in good shape and made of metal is a material that defies both scratches and polishing. Now, you just saw the Hublot Big Bang Mecha 10 in blue ceramic, and now you're looking at the Zinn EasyM 1.1 with tegmented carbon diffused steel and then a diamond-like carbon hard black coating on top of that. These are watches that, if damaged, can't be refinished. But here's the thing. they don't need to be. So if you hate scratches, scuffs, and damage, and you want the security of knowing your watch has never been touched by a refinisher, buy one of these indelible, unmarkable materials. It's to your benefit when you buy it and it's completely unmarred, and then it's sort of an advantage that accrues to the owner over time as no new marks are created on that super resilient material. So that's a great argument for buying used. You don't have to worry about refinishing, and then you don't have to worry about damaged. Buy with confidence if the material is that tough. What else is going on here? Shoutout saying maybe wait for a Trabant instead. I'm not sure what the preceding comment was, but a Trabant was a suspect Eastern European car made during the communist years. What else is going on here? Yuki saying taking a break from drones to push numbers up. Hit that button, y'all. I appreciate that. Yeah, if I really wanted to like clickbait you guys, I would have put drones in the title. See, I have at least some integrity despite being a watch salesman. What else is happening in the box right here? Andrew T saying, Tim, thanks to your reviews last week, I learned that the Geopano retrograph exists. The timer movement is incredible. They've also got that advanced alarm watch. That's true. The Senator Diary, highly recommended on both fronts. Jim Millett saying ceramic bathyscaphs, the 50 fathoms, are a great buy on the pre-owned market. And I could not agree more. Guys, we're over 300 concurrent viewers. You know what that means to me. Please stay tuned and stay with me. So now, does this watch, if you're thinking about buying something used, does this watch have a crazy long factory warranty? We had a question about a JLC Reverso earlier, and well, here's the thing. Industry standard is now right around 5 years. That's Rolex, that's Omega, that's AP, and that's Tudor. So it's all of those. And I would say that's nice, that's good, but Oris is now 10 years on a watch that costs under $4,000, and many Richemont brands now offer 8 in total. So if I can get a watch for thousands off retail and still enjoy 5 to 7 years of factory warranty, if the condition's right and the set is complete, why wouldn't I? What am I losing? Certainly not protection, that's for sure. It's often said that the top competitor for Harley-Davidson is used Harley-Davidson motorcycles. I love the Road King so much, especially white with a screen, because it looks like a bike a cop would ride, but I digress. The thing is, Harley has sold so many millions of bikes, and they last forever for the most part if you don't crash them. So Harley is competing against its own forever motorcycles. And that's sort of true. New watches being sold by brands that offer huge warranties have to compete with the exact same watches now on the aftermarket with years of protection left. So watches are the same way as Harleys. You know, the best Harley-Davidson is usually a used Harley-Davidson, and the best watch is usually one that's now like 1 to 2 years old with a huge amount of factory protection. It's great for customers, and I'm not complaining. Okay, since we're probing the heights few will ever attempt, this is now the absolute apex of first world problems, so you've been warned. So sometimes a brand wants to see more than just commitment to buying recent models. If you make some sort of request, they might want to see more than that you just dumped a lot of money on current catalog. Let's use Ferrari as an example of this in the car world. So you can go and you could buy a Roma, you can go buy a 296, a Portofino M, and maybe you bought a V8 twin turbo GTC4 when those were still available. You've got a purchase history, you've shown commitment. That'll probably get you a V12 allocation, a Dodice Calandre, or maybe a Pro Sangue. But if you show up asking for an SP3 Daytona or an F80, the expectations might be higher, far higher. So what am I talking about? Well, Ferrari might want to know, how many vintage Ferraris have you bought? How many? Not just one, several. They might want to know, have you sent it for a Classique authentication and factory restoration? They're going to want to know, do you own Ferrari race cars like this 1990s 333 SP? And if you do you exhibit it at Concours or do you race it in historic sports car racing? This matters. Your answers might be the difference between yes and no on that SP3 Daytona or the F80. So now, to bring this back to used watches, buying a pile of Pateks new from the dealer will probably get you an enamel watch or some kind of application timepiece of similar stature and rarity. But what happens if you're asking for something like a Grandmaster Chime 6300? Okay, that's a watch that costs $3 million US before tax. But you gotta realize They're allocating you something that will instantly be worth multiples of what you paid based on what I've heard about the Grandmaster Chime aftermarket. Instantly worth $6, $7, $8, even $9 million. So they need to know that you want it for the right reasons and that you can be trusted not to flip it and embarrass them. So now you're going to need to have purchased used watches. Remember what we said early, vintage and used, they are the same thing. There's a Venn diagram. Vintage watches, late model pre-owned, used in the middle. So consider this. They're going to ask, do you have a 2499? What series? First series? How long have you owned it? Where did you buy it? How many Jean-Pierre Hagman cased 1990s minute repeaters do you own? Do you own complicated vintage Patek Philippe pocket watches from before the Stern era? Which ones and what are the serial numbers? All of this can be considered your quiver of used watches, but now used has expanded to include a meaningful and thoroughly curated collection of important vintage pieces collected over a long period of time. That's a different level of commitment and probably what's going to be required to get one of those apex pieces. Okay, now let's talk about brands that are not Patek Philippe. In the case of catastrophic depreciation, there are some brands like Parmigiani, Blancpain, and even Audmars Piguet that make lovely dress watches, and they're beautiful and complicated and special and fine. Some of them are profoundly innovative and distinctive, like the Oval Pantograph right there, based on an old Varden and Stedman British pocket watch that Michel Parmigiani himself restored. But now all three of these brands that I just mentioned are really strong in sports watches, but only strong in sports watches. And I find their dress options more interesting, but I think I'm alone in that regard. Arnold & Son watches prove that rarity, innovation, beauty, finishing alone aren't enough to ensure robust secondary markets. And it's really great if you're buying used, but I can tell you that CTB chronograph right there, which includes both sweeping and deadbeat center seconds hands, this is a watch that I've seen selling lightly pre-owned for literally half of its retail price. Half. Full set. Box and papers. And I've seen this several times. So how could I ever expect a client to pay me full list for that watch? I don't think I could if I were selling it new. And I'm speaking as someone who really loves the Arnold & Son brand and wants them to succeed. It is up to these brands to make the case for buying these dress watch models new. Finally, you might live in some sort of an economic bubble, and by that I don't mean some rapid and unsustainable economic overexpansion. I mean a very unique and siloed market now. Republic of South Africa, good example of that. The import duties on most products are 15%, and on luxury items up to 40%. So we used to have an affiliate in Cape Town, and the idea was that if you were going to sell watches inside of South Africa, used had a huge advantage in that you could buy within the market and sell within the market and skip that entire import duty. That makes a lot of sense if you're in a place like South Africa or a place like mainland China or a place that due to economic idiosyncrasies and currency conversions like the UK has now become its own sort of self-contained circular market. So if you are in one of those places, buying used might have huge financial advantages, especially if you're in a place like that and you could be paying 40 VAT on a newly imported luxury item. Okay, wrist shots number 3. Assad S wins the watches and wheels stakes forever with the Tudor Black Bay Pro GMT and an MV Agusta F4 1000 Ago. Okay, we saw the Bugatti earlier. That is probably quicker in a straight line than the Bugatti. I've thought of bringing one of those into my office just to decorate my office here at the company, and I looked it up and it wouldn't fit in the elevator, and that's the only reason that bike isn't in my office right now. Ryan M is the king of the road in a different sense with his white gold Longa Saxonia outsized date. We've got Robert F and his Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter driving the BMW Z4 in Northern California. Simon S rolls with the Rolex Submariner, a memento of his parents, which I adore, and a custom road bike, which makes this guy a man after my own heart. Between the Ago and this, I'm not sure which I'd prefer. Guys, send your wrist shots to MondayMailbag@thewatchbox.com. Okay. Fake out. You thought that was the end. I got another round of wrist chats, guys. Viewer wrist chats number 4. Here they come. Nick M. from Birmingham, Alabama, not the UK, gets in the spirit with his Rolex Daytona Oyster Flex. Looking good. Rick R., a good friend, normally out of Chicago, enjoys Palm Desert, California with his Vacheron Overseas Dual Time. Juliana travels Zurich by boat out on the river with her Breitling Super Ocean. I love it. Guillermo and his Grand Longa One are definitely watching this time, not singing in the opera. Ren T and Mrs. end our year with a holiday his and hers by the tree with JLC. I haven't made it rhyme. Guys, send your wrist chats to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your passion in this fashion in 2025. We are done for the year. We will not be on further until the new year hits, and I will return in January. Until then, join me on Tim_Mosso to follow my holiday on Instagram, and also the Talking Time with Tim Mosso Facebook group, where I will be doing a couple of live streams from the old family home on vacation. Until then, thanks so much to Garrett, Sean, Sid, Nick, Kenny, and my entire production team all year long, and for you, making the best job in the world, not just watches, the best job in the world possible. Until next year, time out.